Hello everyone on Facebook Live, it's Steve Barrett here, PRWeek, and we're ready to do our weekly podcast. As usual, got a great guest for you this week, Andy Pray, who is the founder, Praytell, and the CEO, and the chief...
the head of IT, the founder,
yeah.
the head of catering.
Head of all-round good guy.
Hopefully.
According to your staffers anyway, which has got you into our best places to work in the past, and also Small Agency of the Year. So we'll talk to Andy about his agency, really interesting agency based out in Brooklyn and doing great things. And we've got Frank Washkuch here, our news editor, as usual. So welcome, Frank, and let's get ahead with recording. Let us know what you think, add any comments at the end, and enjoy the podcast. Hello and welcome to the PRWeek, PRWeek's regular weekly roundup of everything that matters in the worlds of PR and communications. My name's Steve Barrett, I'm the editor-in-chief of PRWeek. Going to guide you gently through the next maybe 20-25 minutes as we pick up on the big issues of the week. A little bit quieter this week, but still some interesting stuff to talk about, very interesting stuff. And we're going to start with our guest, Andy Pray, who's the founder of Praytell, a really great agency. It's won our Small Agency of the Year this year. It's been Boutique Agency of the Year. It's won the Best Places to Work award once or even twice.
Last 3 years.
Last 3 years. So you're on fire, Andy. So looking forward to chatting to you about the agency, and welcome. Great to have you here. And we'll also pick up, we've got Frank Washkuch here as well. Frank, how are you doing? Our news editor.
It's good to be here as always.
It's always good to have our great news editor here, and we'll talk about some interesting stories this week. McDonald's, they've set up this little in-house storytelling unit. We'll talk about that. Does that signal a change of direction, or is it just building on the whole storytelling brand content thing? We'll talk about April the giraffe, a tall story if ever I heard one. We'll talk about Nudge the Carter and how Wendy's has been getting involved in that. Burger King and their wiki entry, so there's a bit of a theme in the stories this week. And Google, they're considering bringing in an ad blocker for their Chrome browser. And we'll also just get some thoughts on the whole YouTube and ad boycott, because inappropriate ads finding themselves around brand content. And anything else that catches our attention over the next few minutes. But Andy, let's start with you. You've had a pretty meteoric rise, haven't you, Praytell, and done some great things which we described. So what do you, what's the secret sauce? How are you producing such a great agency, doing such amazing stuff?
Well, thank you. The timing is like the biggest thing, right? We were born 4 years ago as of April 1st. And, or that's when we say we were born, because that's when we hired our first crop of people. Yeah. And having to steer an agency with a legacy, a great legacy and history of services that was from 20 years ago, 30 years ago, seems like it'd be really hard, right? To modernize and to like make yourself like what you need to be today. So we were born at this precise moment when it's not a question of if you're integrated. It's not a question of if you do social or if you do paid. Like, of course you do, right? It's the equivalent of if you made a company today, you would start with your mobile website first today. So we had just this amazing timing and serendipity of just knowing that versus having to have an identity crisis of who are we and what do we do and how do we steer this? No, we know exactly what we are.
That's really interesting, because we're just doing our agency business report, and we profiled about 30 odd agencies and done lots of numbers and trends. And you're absolutely right, because pretty much every other agency from Edelman right down to a 5 to 10 million shop is trying to turn around that tanker in the case of an Edelman, or even just change the culture of the firm. So you're absolutely right. So how has that really enabled you to build a new agency? And how do you describe yourself as a PR agency, and how do you think that's going to play out?
We spent about a day thinking, all right, if we say we're a PR agency, what happens to the clients who think of us as a digital shop or a social shop? And ultimately we thought, you know what, like we want to still lean into PR. Like, let's stop wasting energy talking about like what does PR mean, and let's just do it. And I think PR, like taking ownership, like yes, PR today equals a lot of things you associate with advertising and social and digital and paid, and really leaning in. So we are a PR agency and we're proud of it. And to us, PR means all of that stuff. And so if we're doing, working for Twitter, we're still a PR agency, right? Just with really strong social muscles in that case. So we say PR, we're proud of the PR term, and we think it's a great time for it.
Some people in the review, the agency review, are saying they don't think there will be single discipline agencies in 5 to 10 years. You know, you've got advertising, you've got media, you've got PR, direct marketing, digital. What's your view on that? Or does it really matter, you know?
Well, don't you, I mean, you guys know, like, when we get business kicked to us from some traditional agencies who are awesome, and I thank you, that's so great, but I think, how the heck, like, that you don't have or aren't building this discipline internally is insane to me. Like, I don't understand, like, how you, it's just, I think everybody, you're exactly right, I guess, I'm agreeing with you, that the need to have this very integrated, merged, one P&L, we're very, very keen on one P&L. You have agencies that have built their separate agencies internally, which is, again, I don't understand why you would be fighting internally for different pieces of budget when you're all on the same team. But yeah, I mean, if it doesn't go that way, I think that's dinosaurs. Agencies that aren't thinking that way are going to be extinct.
Yeah, I suppose, you know, you get to a certain size and you have client conflict comes in and you have all those sort of issues and you have to have global coverage, you have to be, you know, covering 15, 20 markets around the world. So that brings with it different challenges. Give us a couple of examples of that work in action then, of you know, client work you're doing that you think really epitomizes the Praytell offer, if you like.
Yeah, so MAC Cosmetics and the MAC AIDS Fund, a longtime client, super proud to work with them, especially just given how they take a stand for things that are important. So we came up with the idea to do a documentary chronicling the lives of 5 transgender individuals. Really exciting about how it's not sensationalized, it's not comedy, it's not drama, it's just real people, and I think it's an important time considering the narratives around bathrooms and things like that. So we concepted the idea, we shot the idea, we hired Silas Howard, who's a director on Transparent. We did a deal with Showtime, and so it will be airing on Showtime on June 23rd, all in-house, all Praytell. All the artwork for the movie poster, we made a digital deal with Refinery 29 for all the content. So you have an idea, we're going to make a documentary. It's going to be on Showtime, it's going to be promoted on Refinery 29. We're going to have tons of PR around it, long leads and short leads, and really treat it like a film launch. The social storytelling is huge, activating in-store, activating the artist community. So it's a fully realized big idea that has every component from pay to earn to partnerships to us CSR, which is super important. So I think it's a good example of the kind of work we want to do. We shot it, we edited it, we came up with it, we wrote a press release for it, we're going to be pitching it next week.
So you do all that shooting and filming in-house, you don't work with a film production company or anything?
We're the film production company, so certainly we hired a lighting person and an amazing cinematographer. We have shooters in-house that did other cameras, but we did most of the work.
That's great. I mean, we're looking forward to see. Our Brand Film Festival was kind of set up to profile work like that, so we'd love to see that in next year's festival, and that's again a cross-discipline thing that you know we're doing with Campaign, our sister title. How important is that these days? One, you talked about the cause element of it. How important is that in getting people to work for you, the best talent, and how important is that to young people who want to come into the industry? And 2, what about positioning clients in correctly? Because you know it's risky sometimes, isn't it? If you're going to go out there and make statements on social, political, cultural causes, especially at the moment when it's a crazy time across the world. How do you strike that right balance so that you're not sort of alienating one group of people against another?
Yeah,
2 big questions there, actually.
Post-election, I made mistakes. I mean, at post-election, I was emotional. I think there's a lot of the progressive movement was emotional. PRWeek asked us a lot of folks to say who's going to win, and very few people were. I think anyone right.
Nobody did actually.
Nobody was right. And our office was emotional that day, and I think that emotion bled into some ideas. We didn't get too far in pitching them, but some ideas on activism and an approach to take. And I think my answer is that would have been a mistake, right? To posit that emotion and move it into like a PR or any kind of campaign. So for us, it's just, even with that emotion, we have to be as cautious as humanly possible because it's a very, very polarizing time, and you better really, really have a good reason to be talking about those causes. A CEO who shall not be named came to us from a global 500 CPG, and our assignment was to find a cause for that CEO to care about. And it's like, well, that's not going to work, right? At all. And
It's
I feel
going to come the other way. It's going to be something you feel strongly about.
Yeah.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, MAC Cosmetics wants to sell cosmetics, and it wants to sell to everyone, doesn't it? So they have to balance getting involved in causes and storytelling and content, but also, they want to sell some stuff.
But they since they started, had the Mac Gates Fund and the Viva Glam line. 100% of the proceeds go to HIV, right? All ages, all races, all sexes. Like, so they're so invested with authenticity that they can do it, and you asked about the HR side. We have a thing called the Passion Project, have had since day one. Our first client was the Food Bank for New York, and that was a pro bono client and remains one. And so we use the fact that people have to donate about 10% of their time on nonprofit or pro bono causes that they choose as a filter. Because frankly, people who want to do that kind of work and are excited and energized by that are the kind of people you want to have at your office and are like great colleagues. And so, if anybody's like, oh, like that's a drag, well, guess what? Like that's a great way to not have an asshole working with you. And so, we have a 100% retention rate in 4 years. We've never had any person leave us for another agency in 4 years straight. And I think it's because we have people who are in it, like we're in it together. So.
Yeah, and when people talk about talent as the number one issue, and getting the best talent and retaining the best talent, so that what you're saying is that is a big factor in you being perceived as a great place to work. And will people sometimes even work for less than they could maybe get at a mainstream agency, but because they like the environment, they like the people?
Well, our people are the most patient people in the industry. We've been building an airplane and flying at the same time. So we are so imperfect, it's incredible. And so I think that they make sacrifices in terms of, what's our org chart? Like, we barely know what our org chart is, right? And like things like that, we just don't have those processes. But, we are lucky enough to be subsidized by some great accounts. And so you should be able to work in a place like Praytell and not have to we have world-class benefits and market level salaries that we're really proud of. So the good news is you don't have to make a sacrifice to work in a place.
It's not one or the other.
No.
Okay, and then finally, the interesting thing you did last year was actually become part of a holding company and at a relatively early stage in your development. So tell us, one, about the holding company that you went with, and two, why did you make the decision to do it at that time in your sort of evolution?
Yes, early, and people are like, you went too early, like that happens. I've heard it. Well, first of all, we started Praytell with nothing. I had $1,000. Like, my last dollars went to the after party to launch it, right? And so, when you bootstrap a company, then you from the beginning, you're always thinking about cash flow and how can we support our ambition. And if you really want to, we don't want to go slow. We see what we can do, and that requires investment. And so we knew from day one, it wasn't about selling out. It's like, when can we support our ambitions with the financing that it needs to scale? And so that was important. We found the right fit earlier than we thought. It's a family-owned company based in Detroit, project worldwide. They own about a dozen of the best agencies you can find. Motive on the event side, GPJ, George P. Johnson, Argonaut, Project, Partners in Napier, Wonder Sauce, Shoptology, the list goes on and on. Like, the best guys in VR, the best guys in e-commerce, the best Super Bowl ads. Like, we have friends in our family now that we can work with. That's just incredible. We were at the New York Auto Show last week pitching a global automaker for a really big campaign that was non-competitive. So we were working with another of our agencies. We walked in and gave them a really big idea, and we made it. And it happened. And there's no way that I'm sitting there at the New York Auto Show pitching that auto manufacturer. There's just no way. It's amazing.
So it's opened up some great opportunities, but also some great potential partners to do some more expansive work with it as well.
Yeah, the network is so supportive of collaboration. Also, our employees get things they deserve. It's an employee-owned company, so they all are part of an ESOP. Mm-hmm. So they know that their work is going back to them. It's like the Green Bay Packers. It's employee-owned, which is awesome. And there's just little things sometimes it's kind of nice to have the stability. It's nice to work at the crazy startup, but it's good to know that underneath it all, there's a grown-up who's watching things and making sure that it's going to be okay. And I think that the balance we have of the nimble, weird startup trying new things with the credibility of a family-owned company and agents, the GPJ has been around for 100 years, right? And so it's just nice to have that in the background.
Yeah, because sometimes you join a holding company and you have to almost devote an extra 20% to just servicing the holding company structure, don't you? It doesn't sound like that's the way it works with Project.
So far, knock on wood, it has been, like I was telling you before we were rolling, it's been weird how good it's been, and I keep on waiting for a shoe to drop and something to happen. So I hope it doesn't. But so far, it's been a fantasy.
Great. Well, we look forward to tracking that. We'd love to write about that auto project down the line when you can talk about it. But let's get into the new stuff. Frank, let's tell us a bit about McDonald's and this in-house storytelling unit that they're putting together.
That's right, and there's a cloud of mystery around it, but what we know from a job ad that McDonald's posted is that they are, quote, building a team that is changing the perceptions of one of the most recognized brands in the world. So kind of vague, but like they said, they're building a team that is going to be focused on storytelling. Going to be comprised of creative, innovative, and disciplined storytellers that are committed to telling smart, succinct, and sustained stories on behalf of McDonald's. So this is interesting for a couple of reasons. For one, it just brought on that gigantic Omnicom group called We Are Unlimited that is servicing McDonald's across the board, mostly on the paid side, marketing, et cetera, et cetera. They have the long-time relationship with Golan, of course, and they recently switched over from having a big Publicis Group account. So interesting on that level, and we also know the troubles that the PepsiCo in-house agency had a few weeks ago.
Indeed, yeah.
So so one worth keeping an eye on, and one we'll be keeping an eye on.
Wendy Clark sort of moved over from Coke, didn't she, to be CEO of DDB, and she kind of went in and with a big pitch to McDonald's to take their business away from Publicis, with a new charging structure, actually, a fee structure based on performance rather than traditional fee structure. So have you looked at structures like that for you, for your agency? You know, given that you're a new type of agency, have you looked at a new type of billing arrangement, or is that too risky? You know, if you're going to tie your wagon to the performance of the company, and that can go two ways, of course, and you know, especially for a smaller operation.
Yeah, we love it. We have a 1-day out clause in our SOWs. You know, if you don't want to work with us, like, you know, we have to earn our meal every day, and so Anheuser-Busch is one of our largest clients, and a lot of our work there has a variable model, and we think it's really smart. You know, we like the fact that if we crush it, there's a little bit more for us, and if we don't, then there has to be accountability, and we are not scared of that. We love that. I think it's interesting. What do you think?
I think it's risky at that scale, you know, because you're betting. You have to devote it depends how far they had to go to win the business, because we know how much procurement drives a lot of these things. And I think at your stage you're a lot more nimble, and you can go in and do things that maybe a bigger organisation can't.
It's worth pointing out too, with something like We Are Unlimited, they have people from, you know, Twitter, Google, and all these different companies embedded in there as well.
That's right.
So,
yeah. What about the whole thing about having in-house people working on the content side of it, the branded content side, versus using agencies? How does that mix work in practice? You know, and what are the upsides and downsides? Some clients, we talked about Pepsi there. I mean, they had the whole in-house studio, and they were very much doing it all themselves. We don't know how much that was a part of what happened with that, but how can you balance it to get the balance right with the client? Do you need to have people in-house doing the content as well, or do you prefer it if you're actually doing most of it?
I think the more smart people you can have really close to the brand, the better, right? I mean, the more you can get a partner on the client side that is really has experience in storytelling and is invested in it, has a mandate internally, that can only be good. And ultimately, agencies are there to help support that and be a sort of a force multiplier. And you know, I think that, so I don't think there's insecurity around our role in that. I think that's great. If every brand made that investment internally, I think we would see better work.
There are a lot of risks with what you mentioned in terms of the agency structure, and what if McDonald's changes their mind. I think the thing that jumped out at me looking at the job description is that they want to change perceptions of a brand like McDonald's, and that seems a lot easier said than done. I mean, this is a really best known brands in the world. I mean, how do you change perceptions of it so quickly?
Yeah, and we should say we don't know how big or small this unit is going to be, but yeah, certainly with brands like Pepsi, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, you know, people's attitudes to those sort of brands and healthy eating and drinking and what have you is changing. So that's a perception change in its own right, isn't it? Do you tend to work, Andy, for the CCO or the CMO now, or is it? What's the dynamic there?
Yeah, it's like we usually go through the comms side, head of comms, director of comms. We're still not, I won't say upstream enough, but of course we work with the CMO on some levels, but I think more frequently we're on the comms side.
Yeah. So another thing on this sort of new world, if you like, is taking advantage of opportunities on social media to get your brand involved in narratives, and there are big upsides to that, but also potential dangers as well. One of the other stories this week, Frank, was the giraffe. April,
Yes.
Is it April the giraffe?
It is.
Is April the mother, or is April the little giraffe that's being born?
April is the new mother of the baby giraffe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us a tall story, Frank, about this campaign.
Right. Okay, so April the giraffe became a cult phenomenon on the internet a few months ago when Animal Adventure Park in upstate New York, where she resides, put a camera on her because she was about to give birth to a baby giraffe. The pregnancy went on a bit longer than planned, I guess you could say, and she remained pregnant for a lot longer than
How long does a giraffe normally?
Yeah, this is above my pay
Just
grade. I don't know. But it ran so long that one sponsorship actually ran out last month.
Okay.
So speaking of nimble, Toys R Us essentially called them up and said, "Hey, you have a giraffe, we have a giraffe, let's do
That's
business."
right, yeah, that's...
Right, the giraffe is their logo.
Yeah.
So they get together, they sponsor the live cam, and what timing? April gives birth to the baby Giraffe Jr. And at that point, Toys R Us switches the sponsorship over to Babies R Us, which is their sub-brand, yeah. And they're building the new baby giraffe into a lot of their promotions and digital activity and whatnot. So.
What did they do beyond just sticking their logo on the feed? How did they sort of take it a little bit beyond that?
Well, they've had some agreements, so they're making April the giraffe and baby giraffe plushies and whatnot now, and they are using the imagery of the giraffe family on their Babies R Us page and things like that. So they're co-opting the imagery a bit.
So Andy, when you get things like this happening, how do you decide, well, yeah, this is one we should go and get involved in, or actually we should probably leave that one alone? That could potentially be more of a downside than an upside.
Yeah, we have a daily trending team, and so every morning they wake up, like many agencies do, and they look for what's trending and how can we plug in brands. And I think it's easy to be an armchair quarterback in this industry and look at Pepsi. And, oh my God, that would never happen. But really smart, really smart people are working there, right? And so I'm just thinking of the trending ideas that we've sent over that are really bad, right? Really bad, hashtags to jump in on, because it's a volume game, and ultimately you don't know which ones are going to take, which ones are going to offend, and obviously you have to be a smart strategist with everything you do. But we start with being very liberal, and then we get more and more conservative as we look at here's 10 tweets that could work this morning for Logitech, and then half an hour later look at it with a scrutiny of a really mean client that we don't have, right? But all right, this could offend a grandmother in Des Moines, and this could really upset, a terrier in Boston or whatever, and so on and on and on. So we're just trying to be really smart because it's really easy to screw this up. I don't know, right?
Yeah.
I think every day there's a new story, and every day you're like, how could this happen?
That's a good point,
Well,
actually.
and I'm reminded of this by your sneakers. And look, full disclosure, I have 900 pairs of Adidas sneakers myself. So, but how do you send out an email after the Boston Marathon like that? And
If that's a German copywriter, right, who probably just wasn't thinking, and it's a global company, and I'm not rationalizing it, just
But it's a question, isn't it, of why wouldn't they have a second opinion, so to speak? Yeah.
Yeah, just explain that one, Frank, for people, anyone who
They sent out an email, Adidas did, or Adidas for your home audience, about congratulating people who finished the Boston Marathon, saying, congratulations, you survived the Boston Marathon, which any other marathon might have worked, does not work in Boston for obvious reasons.
And no malice intended there. And they apologised immediately and no harm done.
Very publicly, too.
Yeah, and
the question that I think is interesting for you guys is the outrage. The outrage machine that comes from an email.
We know it very well after last week.
Well, but it's dependent on the apology in a lot of ways. Like, I think that Adidas was successful in making this a one-day story.
Yep.
It was one day, it was over. United was not. For
That's true.
reasons
yeah,
we discussed in many
you know,
different ways.
they really didn't do themselves any favours with that one, and then extended the life of the story. Another on that, because this is fascinating, and in many ways it's like the future of communications, isn't it? This is where the playground, if you like, for a lot of brand activity. But how do your clients measure the success of something? Obviously, the giraffe thing has got a massive amount of profile and exposure. But at what point do they say, well, okay, have we sold more toys, or have we sold more cosmetics?
Yeah.
You know, how do they get that balance in terms of what they expect from you?
Well, I mean, that's why I think PR is like having such a nice moment of golden age of PR. Because ultimately, I think ad agencies right now, as I've heard from ad agencies and really good creative agencies, they're measuring their success by the earned media pickup, right?
There's add value equivalents.
Yeah, and they're starting there, thinking, will this get us the PR? Which I think, well, we should be the ones coming up with the campaigns that can get the PR, right? So it's a nice place to be. So I think, obviously, business is business. You got to sell lipstick, butts and seats and heads and beds, I know, but honestly, like, earned media pickup still, I think, has a ton of weight internally, and oftentimes these things are about rallying people internally and getting people excited and getting key stakeholders aligned, and I don't know, it's still pretty powerful as a KPI.
Okay. Well, another one was Nugs for... Let's pick it up a bit, actually, because we're running out of time.
Right.
Nugs for Carter was another one we wrote about this week, and the Burger King messing with their wiki entry, which, again, is another... slightly bold strategy that could have gone the wrong way. Just talk us through those, Frank.
Fascinating. We're talking about something called Nugs on April 20th. But, anyway, Carter Wilkerson, 16-year-old high school student from Reno, Nevada, tweets at Wendy's a couple weeks ago and says, "How many retweets would I need to get a year of free nuggets?" They say 18 million. He's up to 3.2. The record is 3.3, held by Ellen DeGeneres. And,
with the Samsung.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting
if
if he broke that.
It
was the Oscars, yeah.
So, so he's on track to break a retweet record, if nothing else. But he's still not going to get his free.
They got to give him a consolation prize, right?
They winked
Other
at
than
it.
attention.
I think they're going to give him something. I have a question for you, though, real quick.
Sure.
This is Wendy's. The first one was Samsung.
Right.
What's the next brand that will be the next retweet? Make a prediction right now. Fearless prediction for the next brand to hijack a retweet record of 3.5 retweets. And if you get it right, Praytell will give you
I can't wait.
branded hoodie and a branded notebook. Just putting that out there.
Man.
United Airlines.
United Airlines.
Okay.
Really?
No, I have no idea. But, well, it might not be a good one.
You're right. That could be bad. I'm going to go with Nike.
I was going to say Nike.
A safe pick.
I was going to say Nike.
Why would you both say Nike?
Why would we say that?
Because they still have that cachet, don't they? And we were talking earlier about brands getting involved in social issues, and Under Armour has seen that rebound a little bit, hasn't it, with the CEO's position on politics. And Nike's managed to kind of plot that right path through it all. I guess with a brand like Nike, though, it's keeping that cool factor over a number of generations, because let's face it, they're not the new kids on the block anymore. Under Armour and other brands have kind of come in and taken some of their market share. So I'm going to say
good luck. I hope it happens. You'll get your.
Well, I'm going to say given you mentioned my sneakers, I'm going to say Fred Perry's because they're Fred Perry sneakers, or Converse, which is now Nike anyway. So.
I'm sorry to take away from the note.
No.
And what about
It's
the
just a
Burger?
timely day, that's all.
What about the Burger King wiki and messing with
Yeah,
that?
well, the funny thing is, I think anybody that works in media knows that there's like a golden rule of Wikipedia, which is that you almost have to treat it completely hands off, like it's some sacred thing.
Yeah, we've written about that a lot.
Tended by a group of editors, of which you are probably not one. So
PR people are definitely not welcome in that space.
Yeah, look, I don't blame Burger King for trying. It was a fun idea. There's a little bit of a holier-than-thou sense about Wikipedia, but, I don't blame them for trying to protect their thing as well.
Surprisingly, because as we know, if any of our reporters ever came to us and said they checked a fact on Wikipedia, they would be batted straight back to their desk and told to do the job properly. What do you think, Andy? I mean, there's only so many ideas out there. That one must have come up before or something around there, or going into Wikipedia, is that?
Is the Wikipedia part of the story? Is it the Google Home integration?
Well, that's part of it as well, and then Google also shut that down halfway through, and then Burger King sort of found a way around that.
I think that look, here's the next exciting wave: is people who figure out to hack big ideas with skills on Alexa and Google Home, and the agency that figures that out and can crank out really great, basically like apps. Remember 5 years ago when you would build an app for whoever? They're going to figure out how to build these skills and these integrations. Now this is not the right one, but man, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's a good point about Alexa, isn't it? People are talking about how can brands get into that audio sort of influence space. And talking of Google, they're talking about bringing an ad blocker in for the Chrome browser. There's this ongoing controversy around YouTube where there's some brand ads appearing next to some really undesirable content and unwittingly actually committing revenue to these sites. And a lot of advertisers have pulled their spend. I think Havas actually pulled all their clients' spend, which is a big problem for YouTube. They've got to sort that out. It's a bit like the Facebook thing with the fake news. Andy, you're working with these platforms all the time. What's the balance between them being, because they say they're not media platforms for a reason, but they do have responsibilities, don't they? So, from your point of view, when you're putting your brands out there, how do you strike the balance there?
Well, right now they're the utility company, right? Like we need to use them, and you don't have a choice. You can't turn the power off. And I just think that the third party sort of factor and making sure that these sites are credible and that there's the validity there is really important. So who am I to say that? But I would love for there to be Facebook to be more open to that, and YouTube and all of them, because it's really important. There's so much crap out there, and nobody wants to pay for that stuff.
Yeah, I felt Facebook acted too slowly on trying to get to grips with fake news, to be frank, and kind of tried to absolve themselves from the responsibility for that.
They're trying to speed up in France now.
Yeah, and then they're having their F8 thing this week, where I know that it's been a big subject there, and hopefully they're going to do more on that. The interesting thing on the ad blocker on Chrome with Google, people are saying, well, Google makes all its money from ads, but it doesn't really make money from display type advertising, does it? It's all sort of what we used to call classifieds. They've stolen that business from us and various other media owners. So maybe that's not as stupid as it sounds in principle. But yeah, those platforms are certainly having to really adapt a bit faster maybe than they have been to what is a really vastly quickly changing environment, and it's something you guys have got to be on top of to advise your clients properly, isn't it? So yeah, look, fascinating stuff, Andy. Thanks for joining us. Lots of interesting talk about the new world of communications and marketing, which is where everyone is playing these days, and it's good that you're doing it still with that PR tip, if you like, and still saying that the skills and the methodology of PR is still really important. I think you're absolutely right, as you might imagine, as the editor of PRWeek, but it's a good conversation. So a couple of customer service announcements before we go. Don't forget our Brand Film Festival. I mentioned it earlier. It's the big screening on May the 4th in New York. We've still got a few tickets available for that. If you are putting forward someone for the 40 under 40 scheme this year, there is an extended entry period. Is there another week on that?
1 more week, because I have an entry that's coming in. It's a zinger.
Okay.
1 week.
Is that for you, or are you already over that?
It is not for me. I was lucky enough to have that earlier. But no.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're already at 40 under 40. So you've got about a week left on that, and we've got our Global Awards in London on May the 11th. So do come and join us for that as well. So listen, thanks for joining us, Andy. Frank, thanks as always, and we'll see you next time on the PR Week.